Hello and good morning. We're going to give you guys a couple minutes to jump on live, but I'm super excited to be on here today. Afternoon in the East Coast, but oh, there's a lag. Oh no, there we go. Okay, so I'm going to let Chelsea. So let me turn off the Zoom.
Recording stopped.
Okay. Hello and hi. Happy Wednesday, everybody. Okay, so while Chelsea gets settled and while we let a couple of you guys join the live that we've been kind of talking about, and I've been really excited to share and start, I want to kind of set the context about what this is going to be. This is really for the woman who has ever felt like your life is like falling apart once a month and you don't know why. If anybody listening has an extra like 15, 20 pounds they can't seem to lose, like you've tried everything, and your hair isn't growing like you want it to grow, or your eyebrows aren't coming in as thick as they used to. If you feel like your body's not where it used to be when you were younger, maybe your energy levels are not good, or you're not getting a really good night's rest, or you have painful breakouts, first I want you to send me a DM and let me know what you're experiencing, because maybe I can help you. I get a lot of messages and I love getting messages from you guys on how I can help, but also I wanted to like really demystify and have Chelsea come on and demystify women's hormonal health challenges, so that women can feel like they're in control of their mood, their health, their body, and really feel empowered. And so I want to bring Chelsea on because Chelsea has, most of you probably already know Chelsea, but for those who don't, I brought her on because she's helped over 140,000 women take control of their bodies and their health. She's personally helped me with my health. I mean, you guys have probably seen my journey. I've released a lot of weight because of the simple things that you've taught me and so many other women, so that we can make simple shifts that are really easy and totally doable. And so I wanted to bring you on. Thank you so much for coming on.
Yeah, I'm happy to be here. I'm hoping that right now it seems like my comments are frozen, but I'm hoping that it fixes itself because I want to be able to see while people are here. Feel free to interact, ask questions while we're going.
Yes, for sure. And this is for the woman who is either feeling like they are frustrated in their bodies, not feeling good. You know, the worst part I have to say, Chelsea, about working with you and getting some guidance from you is that I've had to go shopping and get all new clothes recently because none of my clothes fit. They're too big. And so I'm really excited because I struggled for a long time, as you know, and so many women are struggling. So can we start off with talking about that? Like, you've helped a lot of people, so I'm sure you've heard so many people's stories. What are the biggest struggles that you think women are kind of feeling right now?
Yeah, let me back up and I'll just kind of start with my personal story so that people can know where I'm coming from. So, I've been in the women wellness space for 9 years now. And when I first started in the space, I was raised around a woman, aka my mom, who really, really struggled with her hormones my entire childhood. And I got to witness the pain of what it looked like to feel like you were in a constant battle and fighting your own body and feeling like there was no answers ever, that she was constantly going from doctor to doctor to doctor looking for answers, and no one seemed to have one. And I watched the pain of what she went through, not only emotionally, because of course, when we don't feel good in our body, when we look in the mirror and it is not a physical representation of who we feel like we are in the inside, it destroys our confidence. It destroys, the way we see ourselves and how we show up in the world, and makes us feel really sad. Like, that's just the truth. And then from like a physical standpoint, I watched how she struggled with her energy. I watched how she had debilitating, periods that turned into her having to get a hysterectomy. I watched her go through so many different autoimmune issues. And then when I hit the age of, puberty, I had puberty really, really young. So I was the first person in my class to get her period. All right. Not the most fun experience. I was in 6th grade. Mind you, I'm very young for my grade as well. So I was only I think I was 11 years old and I got my period, which of course leads to a lot of things. One, having cramps when nobody else has them, getting your breasts come in before other people's, right? So you're experiencing womanhood very early, but very quickly what I realized is that what my mom had experienced, I was starting to experience. I had such debilitating periods that there was an instance where I actually passed out and had to be taken by ambulance to a hospital because I was in so much physical pain. The best I can describe it, and I've never had a child before, but from what doctors were saying, it was basically the same as like labor pain because, mind you, the only guidance I was given is here's 4 ibuprofens that you're going to take every 4 hours on the mark and just get ahead of it. When you know your period's coming, just be ahead of it. I also had horrible hormonal acne, just everything you don't want to deal with as a woman. And then as I was starting to age, I started to see some of the autoimmune signs come in that my mom had, and resistance to losing weight and feeling a lack of energy and being extremely exhausted out of nowhere. And so I was like so clear very early on in my life that I needed to find a different route because I did not want to be on the trajectory that my mom was, where she was in her 40s and 50s still not getting answers. And so luckily I had already chosen a profession which was in the health and wellness space, right? I already was working with women on losing weight, getting protein in, working with around toxins, like all of that stuff. But my interest, because of a self-interest, started spanning into hormonal health. And one of the biggest things that I realized was that we are a world that is made for men. Every single study and everything that has been put together in the medical profession has only ever been tested on men, which is wild. And I know you're going to have questions for me, so we'll get more into that. But that was really for me that I realized if I'm going to have to self-educate, like doctors are not going to be my route. I'm going to have to advocate for myself and I'm going to have to self-educate to find the answers. So I'm not a professional doctor. I don't have a nutrition degree. I don't have any of those things. I'm just a person who's been in this space for 9 years and self-educated and then have seen the results. And we've gotten to work with so many incredible women who have struggled with so many hormonal issues for so many years with simple application, be able to manage their symptoms so that they can actually live their life at the best possible version of themselves.
So good. Honestly, so good. I want you guys to give some kind of reaction, like do hearts or questions or anything in the comments, because if you've ever felt the way that Chelsea is describing, if you've ever either witnessed someone or personally felt that you have had such bad cramps or not understood what's going on in your body and you're getting this advice from medical professionals and it doesn't feel like it's helping, and you just want answers, like that's really it. We just want to feel good. We want answers. We want to feel like we can trust someone and trust that someone's not just giving us some advice, but somebody's been where we've been. So I'm really excited that you have a personal story that kind of got you here. If you're a woman, you have a story and you can relate in some way. So I'm really excited to kind of dive a little bit deeper. What do you think is like the number one most common struggles women are experiencing that aren't in touch with their cycles and aren't doing cycle syncing? And
as soon as you ask me that, I think that the most common is being silent warriors, in the sense that we have accepted that our hormones are going to be all over the place. Your emotions are going to change. You're going to have debilitating cramps. You're going to have X, Y, and Z. And the workplaces that we live in and in the society that we live in is just kind of like, suck it up,
Mm.
Just suck it up. And so I think honestly, like, yeah, there's so many symptoms, right? And one of the big ones is the emotional swing that we have because of our hormones, that if we can harness, we can actually be much more successful, but also the physical symptoms. But I actually think the biggest debilitating is, I remember feeling crazy, like actually feeling like something's wrong with me because I can't perform in the society that I have. And like, I just need to work harder and try harder. And I was like trying to work in a system of instead of using nutrition and fitness for me, I was using it as a man would, and feeling very frustrated, and then feeling like I was the problem, versus when I was educated and I realized, oh no, like when you can learn your own body, you could actually become at peace with owning your cycle and actually being the version of yourself that feels like, oh, this is this time of the month, I'm going to feel a little bit like this, and that's okay. It's okay that I'm thinking these thoughts. It's okay that I don't want to push it in an F45 class in the middle of my period, and that doesn't make me weak or make me less. It's okay that maybe I don't want to work extra hours during my menstrual cycle, but during my follicular phase, I do want to work extra. It's okay that maybe I'm on a cleanse day and I'm trying to do something and I happen to pick the wrong day of the month, and I'm like, why am I struggling so hard? When I pick the right day of the month, I'm like, it's a breeze. Getting to know yourself and feeling like you are in control of your own brain and your own body, that is such a blessing. And I think that's the biggest symptom that we are fighting.
Yeah, so good. Put a 1 in the chat if you guys want to feel more empowered in your bodies, for those of you who are live, and if you want to overcome this, because it sounds like you really nailed something. So for the people who are listening who have no idea what cycle syncing is, can you kind of give a brief overview on what it means?
Yeah. So cycle syncing is the concept that as women, there is both a circadian rhythm and an infradian. I always say that wrong. I don't know if I pronounce it right, but rhythm. Infradian, right? So the typical rhythm of life that men also have is a 24-hour cycle. Meaning when you wake up first thing in the morning, you have a certain amount of hormones that happen, and when you are hit midday, you have a certain amount of hormones that happen, and when you hit the end of the day, you have a certain amount of hormones that happen. For women, we have that, but we also have a 30 or 28-day cycle. Right? And that is based on, during every week, we have different hormones that are happening. So what we go through over the course of a month is actually what men feel in a day in a much shorter experience. So for instance, when they first wake up, they're going to have testosterone. They're going to have it surging through their body. They're going to feel like, oh my goodness, I'm on top of the world. I want to go crush things. This would be similar to our follicular phase. Then they're going to have parts of their day where they hit around 2 or 3 p.m. where they might have a lull, right? That's going to be in sync with a different part of our infradian cycle. They're going to have the evening where they feel more inclined to be social. That's why we have happy hours, and people are always socializing in the evenings. Our entire social calendar runs based on the man's cycle, right? For a woman, we have a longer extension of time that we are experiencing the hormonal shifts. So you have your testosterone, you have your progesterone, and you have your estrogen. And each of those are going to be at different levels depending on which week of the month it is. Okay, depending on which week of the month it is. And it's important to recognize that, because you can actually eat depending on those weeks in accordance to support it. You can actually work out in accordance to support it. And you can actually work a certain way in order to benefit from certain times of the month versus other times of the month. And on top of all of that, something that I had already been training for a really long time, because I got into, nutrition again when I was very young. I've been in this industry for 9 years. I always knew protein pacing was super important. I always knew cleansing was super important. Those are the core foundations of the nutrition systems that we partner with, that we believe in. When I learned why it's even more important for cycle syncing, was a huge part of it is because if we don't have the proper amount of protein as a woman, we are unable to manage our hormones correctly. It actually supports in the management of our hormones, and it also supports us in our muscle, because we do not gain and lose muscle the same way that men do. It is very different. In fact, you can actually gain more muscle during 1 week of the month than in the other week, no
That's
matter what you do,
incredible.
working out wise.
That's incredible. We have a question. How do you sync hormones if you're in menopause without a cycle any longer? This is a good question, and I do want to kind of talk about this because Chelsea and I are both in our early 30s, and my body has dramatically changed, and I have different things now that I'm dealing with in my 30s than I did in my late 20s, and you've seen my journey.
Yeah.
And so specifically the way it impacted me is that I hit a weight plateau, and I could not lose weight for the life of me. And I felt so tired and so icky, and like my body was holding on to all this weight. And it was literally a simple shift for me of going from plant-based to whey-based. So we can talk about that. But I do want to give like an overview on like the women are constantly changing, not only within the month, but over our 20s, 30s, 40s, and 50s. And you work with people of all ages. So can you kind of give
Yeah. So in specific to if you no longer have your period, whether menopause or PCOS, or, you know, you were forced into it by getting your uterus removed, right? Like there's so many different reasons why women wouldn't have their period. Or if you have a child, a young woman in your life who hasn't gotten her period yet. If you can think about it, there is something in nature that also runs on a 28-day cycle. That is the moon. Now, this is not woo-woo. This is not like, oh, women are one with the earth and the moon. And like, we are, but that's not what I'm trying to say here. Scientifically, we are very linked to the lunar cycle. Okay. And so I don't have this off the top of my head, but I have it in a PDF, and you always share resources. But the parts of our cycle are linked to where the moon is at. And so ideally, you want to always be shedding, aka having your period, during a full or a new moon, just depending on how your cycle falls up. If you are on point and you are and you're very healthy, you will get your period on the full or on the new moon. I know me and Simone are always regularly doing that, right? Because we've worked on this for a while now. That is how. If you pull up, you can Google it, or we can send you the resources, but you will be able to say, oh, during this phase, I'm going to act like I'm in my follicular. During this phase of the moon, I'm going to act like I'm in my luteal. During this phase, I'm going to act like I'm in, you know, my menstrual, and so on and so forth. And then you can follow all the same guidelines that, you know, we're going to share here today. But, and there's so many books and resources on this, but you're going to follow it as if you have a cycle, because you still do. That's the crazy part. Even though you're not bleeding, your body is still working on an infradian cycle.
So good. So I hope that answers your question on, like, this applies to everyone at each different phases. And the really good news about this, if you're somebody like me who has like hired trainers and tried so many things and done blood testing and, you know, saliva testing and all these different things to figure out why I wasn't feeling good and why I didn't have energy, like, it doesn't matter where you're at in that journey. But I know for me, I have spent so much money on supplements and stuff that just really didn't work and it wasn't sustainable. And so it's not, this isn't a one size fits all conversation. And the solutions of where I got here are so simple. And so we'll talk about those in a little bit. So another question I have, so what do you think are some misconceptions so about women's health and hormonal health or cycle syncing, or, you know, that you...
Yeah, I mean, I think the biggest misconception is it's woo-woo. Like, oh, that's like weird and woo-woo. And I actually, when I first started getting into, like, really getting into it, which was in the past, like, I've always been into it, but when I took it to the next level and actually started teaching it for, you know, the women that I worked with, is in the last 12 months. And what I realized is that there are a lot of women who completely reject it, and they're so committed to being in the masculine way of health and wellness and fitness, aka it's macros in, macros out, and, you know, we call it like the bro science, right? Like, it's like, you know, micronutrients don't matter at all, and, you know, all of that. Unfortunately, what I see majority of the time is that happens to be women in their early 20s who get influenced by showing their body on social media. Nothing wrong with that, but they say, hey, look at how in shape I am. And then they don't realize, because they're so young, what's going to happen come their late 20s, their mid 20s, their early 30s, and so forth, because the hormonal changes are going to. The longer you ignore your hormones, the worse it's getting. And you can go for a period of time not taking care of your hormones and not seeing the results, but eventually it will catch up to you. So I think that's the biggest misconception, is that this is like for people who are woo-woo, who are like into spiritual things. Like, this is just science. It's just happens to be a science that's never really been studied by Western medicine, because they never needed to. You have to remember that our entire medical system is based on studies that were done in the 20s and the 50s that literally only was white men. That's who they tested this on, white men, right? So we don't even know with ethnicity as well. So that's a whole other layer. But specifically being a different gender, it's huge. So I think that's the biggest misconception. I also think a big misconception is that you need to be on a ton of supplements, right? We are not going to be talking here today about hormonal supplements. All right. If that's something you need to get your blood work done, just a little caveat on that. If you are getting your blood work done, you need to get tested 4 times throughout the month. You need to get tested the first week, of second week, third week, and fourth week of your cycle. If somebody is telling you you only need to get tested once, they are once again following a male protocol. Because again, if our hormones change every single week, how are you going to see the full picture? How are you going to be able to tell? They're going to be like, oh, your testosterone is high. Well, it just might be that week of the month that your testosterone is high. So just a little note on that. But you do need to get blood testing done if you think you have like true hormonal issues. I would say first line of defense, this doesn't have to be that difficult. It's about the food we're taking. It's about the food supplements we're taking, right? That we recommend around protein, around cleansing, around, things that are food based. And then if that doesn't work, you can go into the next level. But I think that 80% of people who are struggling with these symptoms, it's really coming from a lack of knowledge around our food sources and how we're working out. And if you can manage that first and our stress levels, most people don't have to go the second route. And I see a lot of women thinking they have to go the really expensive, buy a million supplements, take all the hormones, replacements, all of this first before they start here.
So good. Okay, somebody asked a question about birth control interfering with hormones. I know a lot of women have DM'd me about their birth control, and I want to reiterate, Chelsea and I are not medical professionals, and so if you have medical questions, reach out to your doctors. But can we touch on birth control and talk about that?
So birth control, again, this is my personal opinion based on my personal research. That is all you're getting here. I personally don't think that it is a solution at all that we should be using in our bodies, and it is wildly overprescribed. Now, if your doctor is prescribing it for medical reasons outside of getting pregnant and hormonal acne, which those are 2 ways that you can go completely different routes that do not need to be hormonal birth control, then you might need it. There's so many reasons that you might need it, but if you are on it because you are using it as a way to prevent pregnancy or for hormonal acne, it is wildly overprescribed and it does more damage than it does good. Because the truth is that what hormonal birth control does is it tricks your body into thinking it's pregnant so that it can't get pregnant. And that's why you don't have a cycle unless you force it. That's why you can skip your cycle, and it completely destroys your hormones. It's actually basically, they were saying, let's just pause there so that they don't have 4 weeks, their hormones don't regulate with 4 weeks of it. And it just would be easier to manage it if they didn't have women hormones. And that's really scary. There's a lot of side effects that have come out. I personally have not been on birth control really ever in my life, because the first time I was on it, I got really, really ill. I was throwing up like crazy. I, gained weight. I had mood swings, and I was like, whoa, why is this doing this to me? I just, without even looking further into it, and I had gone on it for acne. Again, I wish my doctor would have told me, hey, your hormones seem to be all over the place. Let's manage that through food. You might be gluten intolerant. Let's check your dairy. But they go for that pill first and foremost. Right. It's an easy solution. They want to go straight to that. It keeps you on a prescription. Just going to keep, a prescription is a form of residual income for doctors that you have to order every single month. And you just have to be aware of those things, and you have to self-advocate, and you have to find out if that's the right choice for you, right? There's other ways that you can have birth control that is not hormonal.
Yeah, so good. We have another question about how, like cycle syncing with workouts. How should your workouts change your cycle? So can you break it down into seasons? Because I think that gives people a visual, and I really like that kind of description.
Yes. So the way that you are going to look at your cycle is day 1 of your cycle is actually your first day of bleeding. Okay. So that is going to be your menstruation season. Now, menstruation is actually only like 4 days. It's the shortest part of your cycle, 4 to 5. It depends on you and your personal body, right? Could be up to 6 or 7. But that's going to be your menstruation phase. Most women, it falls around 4 days. That is going to be your winter. Okay. You are in the winter, meaning like it's time to, if you want to think of it from what you do in winter, you are retreating, you are taking care of yourself, you tend not to be as social, you don't really want to work out as much, you're not, you're eating heavier foods, like things like that. That is your winter. Okay. Then you're going to go into, after you come out of your menstruation, you're going to go into your follicular phase. This is like the most fun phase, in my opinion, because this is when your energy is going to start rising. Now, the day you start bleeding is actually the day your hormones start rising again. Okay, so your hormones are going to start rising on the day of your bleed. I used to always think that like menstruation was the worst part of the cycle, but it's actually luteal, which I'll get to at the end, that you have all of your period symptoms. The day you bleed, you actually, and I have an Aura ring and I track this, you can literally see my body temperature shifts on the day that I have my first bleed. And so my hormones are starting to peak, which means you're like, even though you're in your winter, if you think about winter, like the new year, in the fall is more when you're nesting. In the winter, you're kind of like, I'm not ready to come out of my nest yet, but I'm coming back up, right? So then you're going to go into your follicular. That's going to be your spring. Okay. Your spring is when you're going to want to eat your lightest, right? Or somewhat light. It's more when you're going to have salads, you're going to have grilled foods, like thinking about your spring. What do you crave in the spring? You're like, I just came out of winter. It's finally blooming out. I feel energy. It's also when you're going to want to do your highest intensity workouts. All right. So this is when, if you really like HIIT, you can go do a HIIT class. If you're into Pilates, I say do a Legree Pilates during this, like heavier weights, like you're doing like Legree Pilates, not like traditional Pilates, right? You might want to go for a run. This is also when you're the most social. Yeah, so you're going to be more likely to want to go to a happy hour, to want to go meet up with friends. It might be a fun time to try a new workout class because you'll feel more inclined to chit chat with people and just to hang out, right? Where if you're like in your luteal, you're going to be like, I'm not so interested. Okay. That is going to last you. And again, every single person's different and you can test this out with your time, but it's going to last about 8, 9, 10 days. That's going to transition into your ovulation. Okay. Ovulation is when your hormones peak at its highest when you can get pregnant. Okay. This again is a shorter phase. It's like 5, 6 max days. When you're at your peak, again, your hormones are at the highest. You can do heavy lifting. You can still do, you can still be going to Legree classes, but you are about to turn a corner. Okay. So it's just important to know that. So that is your summer, right? So your summer, if I think about spring, and this is just me personally, spring energy is like, I'm ready. I'm out here. I'm good. Like, let's have fun. Let's be social. And that's spring to me. As soon as I hit summer, I'm kind of a little bit more lethargic because I'm like, it's hot, but I'm feeling myself. Like I feel good. I feel great. It's warm out, but I'm not necessarily like running around with as much energy. Then you're going to tip over into the fall. Okay. And that's your luteal. And unfortunately, this phase is the longest. Okay. It typically runs 10 to 12 days. They include luteal as being one phase, but in my opinion, it could be broken into 2 because the first half of your luteal phase and the second half of your luteal phase are wildly different. So the first half of your luteal phase, your hormones are starting to decrease again. You're starting to go down. And this is when on my, Aura ring, I can literally see post-ovulation. When I go into luteal, my temperature changes and I go from being in the negative to the positive. So my temperature rising. So literally I'm now in my my luteal phase. This is your fall, right? So this is when you're going to think about September and October as the beginning of your luteal phase, right? Like you're not necessarily done being social. You can still go to workout classes. You can still, you know, go for a walk. Maybe you're going to go to a regular mega reformer class instead of like a high intensity Lagree class. Maybe you're going to, you know, go to a workout class, but that's not like HIIT cardio. It's going to be more like lifting weights, but in a like lighter way. You're still social, but you just might not want to be out till 10 or 11 o'clock at night. You're like, I don't know about that. Then you're going to hit your second half of your luteal phase, which is like November, December of the fall, where you're like, don't talk to me. Right?
Nesting.
Leave me alone.
We're nesting.
At the most, you're going to want to do a yoga class, yin yoga. You're going to want to take care of yourself. This is when your menstrual symptoms happen. Okay? Not when you are in your period, which threw me off, okay? Because I always like, I was like a victim of like, oh, I'm bleeding, so I have to stay home and I feel like crap. But honestly, it really was the days beforehand that I wasn't giving myself grace and time down and all of that, because you are in the deepest part of like the fall. And that is when you are going to be more introspective. It's a great time to take baths. It's a great time to internalize things, to, you know, journal, think about yourself, and things like that. It's also when you need to eat more. Okay. So what do you eat in the fall? You're going to eat pumpkin and sweet potatoes, and you're going to have more carbs. Your body actually needs more carbs and more calories in order to perform the functions that it needs to do during that time. Where in your luteal phase, you can eat much lighter and much less calories, and you'll actually put on more muscle. If you try to lift weight in the end of your luteal phase, you will not gain as much muscle as if you lift weights in your follicular. So we're just, you know, if you want to use the word biohacking, like why would I work harder to get less results instead of just working with my body during that time of the month?
So good. So good. This is literally like implementing these different cycles, understanding which cycle I'm in has literally transformed my relationship, because I get to communicate and educate my partner on where I'm at. And so he knows, because they don't have the same cycles as us, right? This is business, when I'm doing certain activities, right? Like this has totally dramatically improved my physical health, my skin. I have not had any hormonal breakouts in months. And so I do want to talk about why. Like why is it so simple, or the solution? You know, and what is the solution? And you talked about it a little bit, but let's kind of finish up and talk about this. And you guys, I want you to DM me, tell me what you're experiencing. Maybe I can help. Chelsea's helped me, so DM me. I love it when you guys message me about what you're experiencing, and so, you know, I can kind of tell you where I might go with you. But for me, my weight hit a really big plateau. I gained weight and I hit a plateau, and there was a very simple shift that happened. And it dramatically improved my life. And you talked about it a little bit, but it's protein pacing.
Yeah. So here's my keys to success, right? Everyone's going to have a different one, but these are the solutions that I have found that we can keep it super simple and get people results, specifically around one, if you need weight loss, which I feel like most women, when they're having these hormonal issues, they are struggling with weight loss. They are not feeling great in their body. Two, if you need to minimize the symptoms that you're having, AKA cramps, fatigue, hormonal shifts, acne, all of those things. One, it is your protein. It is so imperative that you are getting at minimum 120 grams of protein a day. And basically you want to have as many grams of protein as your ideal weight. So if you want to weigh 140 pounds, you need 140 grams. So when I say minimum, I mean minimum. Okay. The reason for that is because we are unable to flush our hormones correctly through our system. It is very important that we flush our estrogen, that we flush our testosterone through our body, that we eliminate excess through having one, cleansing, two, having the right foods in our body, and three is protein. Now, this isn't just any protein though. You want to have protein that is nutrient dense. And the big thing that I was learning is that for anyone who ever said that micronutrients were not important, I'm sorry, but point blank period, you're wrong. You are wrong. It is not a macro game, it is a micro game. And we need to have micronutrients in our body in order for our body to function correctly, and specifically certain ones during certain times of the month. So with the protein shakes that myself and Simone use, they are highly micronutrient dense. They are not just about macros, but they also are low glycemic. They focus on making sure you're not going to spike your glycemic levels, which is also really important for hormone health, which is just basically whenever you eat a protein or a carb or a sugar by itself, and it's not a complete meal, you are spiking your cortisol. And you are not cortisol, you're spiking your glycemic index. And you do not want to do that, because then your body is in fight or flight. It doesn't know how to manage it. It holds on to things. So all of that, right? So there's so many reasons why we recommend the protein that we recommend. It's not just like, oh, this is our protein, here's our code. Like, this is what works, specifically what we've seen work for women. And having a supplement of protein, I don't know any woman who is getting in the right amount of protein simply through chicken and fish and steak. It's just not happening. The second piece to that is going to be, there's a chart that will explain what food to eat during what season, aka what vegetables, what proteins. That's going to super support you as well, because it's going to be, and you could read the whole book and learn all the science, or you could just follow it and see if it helps you. I did the book, I read it, I learned the science. I'm not going to sit here and bore you guys with all of it, but like, asparagus does something specific during this season, like, and it has the exact nutrients it needs to do this result, right? And this is going to do something. I actually found it so much easier to grocery shop, because I just knew every week, I'm like, oh, I just take this list. This is the groceries I'm having this week. And it didn't matter for my fiance, because he can eat whatever during any season. So it just gave us variety. I was like, all right, we have cod during this time of the month, and we have steak during this time, and we have this. It actually made it easier. And then cleansing. And so specifically, if you are looking for weight loss as well, there is nothing that has worked better in my 9 years of supporting women with their body than protein pacing and intermittent fasting, supported by a detox cleanse. The reason for that is because, again, we are so inundated. I actually didn't even touch on this in this call, but because this is like a different topic that affects both men and women, but we are so inundated with toxins. Our body cannot focus on its proper function because it's trying to protect us from all of the toxins that are happening in our body. And so when we get clogged up, sickness is basically stagnancy inside the body. You have 7 systems that are supposed to constantly be releasing. You have your bowels, you have your liver, you have your lymph nodes, you have, there's 7 different systems. It's why we sweat, it's why we pee, it's why we go to the bathroom. Like, this is why we do all of these things. This is why saunas are good for you, because you need to keep the flow systems moving. And when something gets backed up, and when any system, your lymph system, your colon, whenever those systems get backed up, it causes illness. That is the stem of all illness. And unfortunately, because of the toxicity levels, our kidneys and our liver need to be supported by intermittent fasting. Now, here's the key though. The difference that made for me was finding out when in my cycle to use it, because it was easier. It just was easier. Like, I was able to complete my cleanses, where before I felt like I was fighting against it. And what I realized is it was directly after I bled, because my hormones start shifting. It is within 2 days, like on your 3rd day of your bleed, basically when you're coming out, that is like the best time to intermittent fast. And so the systems that we put together for people, we support them by figuring out what their cycle is, by picking out those times to do these cleanses. And women are shocked that they're putting on lean muscle, they're shedding the toxic fat, they're, working out in a way that actually makes them feel good and able to put on more muscle and not feel drained and exhausted. They are able to reduce their period cramps, reduce their mental fatigue, reduce their hormonal acne, reduce their emotional swings, which, let me tell you, my fiance was happy about. When you're able to do all of those things, your quality of life just goes through, like, that's just the truth. Like, quality of life comes down to how you feel in your body.
Yes.
And when you have control over how you feel, and I notice a difference. Like, when I have been drinking more and not eating in accordance and not getting my protein shakes in, that period, my cramps are heavier, my emotional mood swings are worse, and I notice it. And then the next month when I'm on my game, they're less. And so it really, you can feel the difference.
Put a 4 in the chat if you guys want to feel a difference in your body. If you guys are like, I want to feel better. I want my relationship to be better. I don't want to feel mood swings. I want my body to be able to naturally detox. Yeah, me too. This has been literally, there's so much good information. A lot of people have asked questions that we don't have time to get to all of them. So send me a message. You guys, we have free PDFs. We have shopping lists. We have like so much resources, so many resources, apps, books, everything to help you start educating yourself and be on your own journey to feeling better. What the biggest difference that I've felt, and like literally the biggest thing that I want you guys to do that I did was I reached out to Chelsea when I was feeling like crap and I was at a weight plateau and I was like, what is going on? And she literally made it so simple for me. So I want to make it simple for you guys. So send me a DM so I can help and make it simple for you. So you can make this little shift in your life and in your nutrition and your body that's going to make a massive impact like it did for me. And I just want to thank you, Chelsea. Like, you literally, thank you so much for coming on and sharing everything that you know. And really, thank you so much for helping me because I feel so empowered in my body. I feel sexier. I feel confident. Like, my clothes look good. And I just want women, like, my skin looks good. I don't need to wear makeup if I don't want to. Like, I just want more women to feel this. You know, that's my mission. So I just really appreciate your impact on my life and so many other women's. Is there anything else you want to leave before we say goodbye? And
I think that the last thing I would say, if you get anything out of this, is you have to self-advocate as a woman. You know, don't trust what is being told to you, even from what this call right here. Like, self-advocate, self-educate, take the time and listen to people who have gone through what you've been through, because there are so many experts in this world that want to tell you this is the solution, but they've never experienced nor have they actually solved the problem for somebody who's also gone through it. And so textbook and application are very different things. And I think we have a lot of people that say, well, this is what the textbook says, so it must be true. But these textbooks were not written for us.
So good. How many women, you don't know how many women I've talked to, I'm sure you have too, who literally, I give them these incredible solutions. I share exactly what I've done. And then they say, let me go talk to my husband. And I'm like, no. Like, he's not going to get it. So, you know, you go tell your husband what you learned.
Even
what you're
to this day, my fiance was like, I just think maybe you should like go do sprints and like, you know, why don't you just, you know, do extra? I'm like, babe, I'm like, no. And in the past, because he's a huge fitness guy and he's really in great shape and things, when I would like let his mind seep into mine, I'd be like, maybe I do need to be like lifting heavy at the gym on my period. And then I would literally get inflamed. And I was like, you got to stop listening to people that haven't been where you've been, period.
Yes, so good. So funny. I love all these comments. Yes, DM me for any of the tools that we've referenced. And thank you so much, Chelsea. I'm so excited to be able to keep feeling good in my body and maybe help some people on their journeys too. So thank you for tuning in. You can also comment if you're watching the replay, ask us questions. I'm sure Chelsea can answer stuff too. And we'll see you guys soon. Thanks, Chelsea.
Bye.
Bye.